Today's guest is Leanna debellevue, who is a dynamic international speaker, trailblazing founder of debellevue Global Marketing Agency, and a co-author of an Amazon international bestseller. With over 15 years at the helm of her award-winning agency, celebrated as the 2025 Business of the Year by the Gilbert Chamber and the 2024 Best Marketing Agency in the East Valley. Leanna is passionate about empowering business owners to find clarity and conquer their challenges through strategic thinking. Leanna now helps business owners identify and eliminate blind spots within their business. So, Leanna, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Very well.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that. And it's also very cool because like a lot of what you do is to find the blind spots on what I'm guessing is like the more strategic, like business end of the spectrum. And then mine is on the, human behind the entrepreneur end of the spectrum. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this with you and kind of, you're always there supporting everybody else. I get to support you today. So I'm excited for it. Yeah. So to get started, I know prior to coming on, you had filled out the stress driver assessment that kind of goes along with this whole experience. A bunch of things came up for you in terms of your own blind spots in your leadership position. So just before we dive into any of the specifics, why don't you share with me any kind of contextual things that you want to add to that and kind of what came out as a result of you going through that assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do feel like it was very comprehensive. Um, I felt myself identifying with a lot of different aspects of challenges. Um, and while they may not have been huge challenges, I still like would mark something to make sure that and I was telling my husband what I was doing, and he kind of teased me. He's like, it depends on the day, right? Because some days like everything's bothering me, other days nothing is bothering me, and but I shared with you that what my biggest what I'm most proud of in our business is our staff. It's what makes it all worth it. It's what makes me wake up joyous every day and that kind of thing. But on that same token, that can also be the most difficult part of business, right? Because I'm not just building, or I did not just build a business for myself. I now have an entire team of people that depend on me to make great choices each and every day, because it's not just my livelihood at stake at this point. It's an entire team of people. So um, that was something that, as I've grown in business, I was not prepared for. Right? Everyone tells you, oh, hire people, hire people, outsource, do all these kinds of things, right? But there's really not a conversation about the weight that comes along with having a staff of a certain size, right? So that's been probably the best yet most challenging part of business ownership. That was a complete surprise for me. I know that was not on my radar at all.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm glad that you're sharing that because I do agree with you, especially the conversations that I have consistently with founders and CEOs. Like that is by far like we cannot have the conversations unless like something happens in and around teams. So I completely agree with you on that. And in many ways, it's kind of like our normal relationships, right? Like our closest relationships are also like I'm gonna go on a side here, but one of the sayings that I like about relationships is like they're biggest tormentors. And it's like, well, that seems like a harsh way to talk about like your partner, like your biggest relationship. And the reason is if we can create some space between like the tour and the mentor, we realize they're also our biggest mentors. Like the
Yeah,
reason that they are so heavy is because they reflect back to us the things that we ultimately need to learn. As I always say, like if you really want to do personal development, in my opinion, it's, start a business, get into a conscious relationship, have kids. They will bring up all of the things that you are still carrying where you are not free, and they will be the mirrors for them. So I know it's kind of like an add-on to that, but anything you wanted to add to that, by all means, do so.
no, you hit the nail on the head. Someone asked me earlier how I stay grounded. I mean, it is a very beautiful thing that we've created, but what keeps me grounded most? My children, my husband, right? And those closest to me, right? Are very, very loving, very kind, but also have no problem, you know, my kids think, I'm bringing them technology and they're like, mom, I get the eye rolls or, that kind of stuff like that. So it is in those relationships that you hold dearest, I think, that you can learn the most from.
100%. So, yeah, definitely align on that bit. So, okay, if we dive back then into your assessment. So, for anybody listening, for the first time, basically the assessment takes you through 7 different dimensions of what I call stress drivers. And these are patterns of thought, feeling, and action that negatively impact kind of 3 core categories of where you want to excel in as a founder and CEO. So, your productivity, your delegation, and your peace of mind. And the overall assessment looks at, okay, your unique combination of these, there's kind of 64 stress drivers that you go through, self-identify through. That unique combination spells out kind of like what is creating the unnecessary stress that you are experiencing in these 3 core categories. And how that translates into like profit and time leaks that ultimately create the business situations that we look at the outside and be like, okay, well, this is obviously stressful. So for you, the majority of them kind of circled around interpersonal and team, and few additional ones that were kind of added on to that were this like emotional overload and the kind of problematic avoidance habits that I reflected back to you, like this is generally going to be your coping pattern. So even just from that context, what would you like to add to that?
I think it's a very fine balance between allowing people to excel in their position and be creative and take liberty and take ownership, right? While still maintaining brand integrity or systems and policies and procedures, right? So as I was self-identifying on some of those things, I think that there was an internal struggle of, some of these things are just, I need to let people fly and do what they do best because I do have an amazing team that does amazing things. But I'm also a business owner. The decisions, I do have to kind of control the chaos a little bit. So I feel like it's a constant pull and push of let them do what they want, reel it back in. Let them do what they want, reel, and that to hear your, kind of to see the assessment come through just shows that maybe I wasn't hiding it as well as I maybe think that I am, right? And how it affects me in business.
Okay, so there's a few different directions we can go with regards to that, but if you want to just elaborate on that last piece. So I heard I wasn't hiding it as well as I thought I was in business.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. So tell me more about that. What do you actually mean about that?
I think I just thought I had maybe the missing piece was the dollar amount that it was impacting the business, right? I think I was hiding from myself the fact that there was a dollar amount that could be equated to this type of thing. I am fairly transparent with those around me, but I just did not think that the weight of it, so maybe not hiding was, but maybe I wasn't fairly assessing what the weight of it was doing from a financial standpoint.
Got it. So in many ways, and I'm just going to reflect it back to you in my words, and you can tell me what lands or what doesn't. I suspected there was an issue here. What I wasn't aware of or taking ownership of or wanting to fully face was the magnitude of the problem. Is that accurate or no?
Yeah, no, I think so. Yes, I would say that. I think I struggle with, like, I'm not seeing it so much as a problem within the business. I think the business is fine, but maybe like an internal area that I could improve on. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
perfect. So tell me more about that. What internal area for you?
Um, just I think I can always every day I try and get better as a leader, and it just highlights that maybe where growth needs to come from, versus worrying about systems or processes or any of the other little things that I could be focused on.
Hmm.
Maybe looking back to more leadership type guidance.
Okay. So I'm going to rewind a little bit to what I was also had in mind to reflect back to when you initially started down this road, and then you can let me know if it connects. But when you start talking about, okay, well, I'm kind of realizing the magnitude of these things, I'm now seeing, okay, I'm pretty good at the systems and the processes part. I think that's kind of my familiarity and comfort zone. Maybe I need to like devote more time on this leadership end. And I'm trying to balance that out with I got to let people kind of do their thing, but then make sure kind of rein it back in because we do have business goals and KPIs and things that I have to hit. So to me, kind of what stood out, what was this quote of saying that, the currency of autonomy is accountability.
Right.
Like if you want people to be autonomous, if you want to give them autonomy, the price of admission to that, the currency that you have to pay is accountability. And generally, who has like issues with accountability is generally people that have a history or leaders that have a history of like people pleasing. Right. And I know that was one of the things that kind of popped up in your assessment on the this interpersonal dimension. So I'm just curious, is that something that resonates with you when I reflect back this way, or it doesn't? Kind of what lands for you with that?
Yeah, I think it has been in the past. I think I am actively growing out of that significantly. I've made really um, intentional decisions based on um, what's best for the whole versus trying to make sure everybody's happy all of the time, right? That in and of itself is exhausting. So I'm pretty proud of the movement I've made to kind of step away from that. So this could definitely be some aftermath, right? But no, I feel fairly confident that my people pleasing days are I'm on the other side of it. I'm on the upside of it. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. So then what would you say is the biggest challenge that you experience right now from a leadership perspective?
Um, that I think it's difficult knowing that I have to answer for everyone when I'm not the one that's actually doing the work, right? At the end of the day, it's very easy to take all the accolades and to accept the awards and to, all of the things. Um, but I don't want to put on our staff pressure that's not necessarily fair for them to take on. Um, but also very aware that if anything goes wrong, it's my phone that rings on any side, whether it's, from employees or clients or vendors or, the million of other people I feel like that we engage with. The buck stops with me, good, bad, or indifferent. So there's that pressure that I
Got it.
would think that most business owners feel.
Yeah, 100%. And I appreciate that because it takes a certain level of awareness, like self-awareness and self-integrity to like, I will take the responsibility regardless of if I had a direct, like it all ultimately the buck stops with me, like you said. So I think that that is a beautiful trait. And if you had to then define that, because okay, like you're describing a general pressure that is felt by people in your situations, right? Like founder CEOs that are at the level where that pressure is something that you have to deal with. So is that something that is on par with regards to just where you are and like, okay, this is the price of admission, that's the chapter I'm in, I gotta like just pay it? Or is there something deeper at play there that kind of aligns with what you said earlier about, okay, what are the leadership pieces that I can grow into to better manage this?
I think it might be a combination. I think no one is perfect. I still have a lot of growing that I would like to do. So I think anytime you're in a position that feels heavy, right? Just like with lifting weights, it's really heavy at first, and then you work out and you progress to where it's a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. So I do think that, working towards kind of working out that muscle so the weight doesn't feel as heavy. I don't think that it's realistic to think that the weight would ever go away. I think at that point, I might be a liability to a company, right? If I just I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Um, I am very well aware that people would love to have the business that we have created. They would love to have, a staff that they can count on and, that genuinely like each other and get along and have an amazing company culture. So I'm very careful to not discount that at all, right? So I do know that there is some of it is just part of the territory. And I'm very honored to even be able to carry that weight. Would I like it to get a little lighter? Absolutely. Right. So I think that
Okay.
that's
So
going to,
if we zoom out a little bit, then what is it that you ultimately want?
I think I would love to have maybe one more layer between me and the day-to-day operations. Maybe that carries a little bit more of that weight. So while I'm carrying the weight of 50 people, maybe I'm carrying the weight of one or two that are, you know what I mean? That weight gets evened out just a little bit more.
Okay. So somebody to spread the weight of leadership with you.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And what do you feel like? Because that's pretty clear. Like it's not like, okay, we got to figure out what it is you actually want. Seems pretty clear. It's not an easy question to answer. So what is stopping you from doing
Well, full transparency, I didn't have that realization until about 15 seconds ago.
that? All right.
No
Well,
one's asked me
I'm
that
glad
before.
this was worth your time. So we're done. Thank you.
Yep,
We're good.
yep. You've solved all my problems. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, honestly, I have not been asked that question, and I really hadn't thought it through in that way. Um, but what hesitation would potentially come up in bringing someone in, I think would just be everyone is so used to it always being me. I now have to get the buy in of everybody else to allow it to not be me. Right?
Okay. So the next question I'm going to ask you is going to be a little bit kind of off center, and we'll just see where it goes.
Okay.
So when I initially reflected that back to, okay, what do you want? And then you thought about it, you're like, okay, well, I want an additional layer between me. I want somebody to kind of take the weight and distribute it. Prior to that, your body language was very like open. Like you were kind of like, yep, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm answering, like it's all good. And then as soon as you had that realization, your body just moved back, like kind of like crossed your arms, and it was kind of like this. Like it was, I'm not saying you did or did not feel this way. We're gonna get into it, but there was like a defensive posture to that realization. Okay. So I'm just kind of curious, like right now, as this is kind of still real time, like what are you feeling internally inside of your body right now?
I just think I'm going through the list of 1 million things that would need to happen in order for me to be able to do that. So I'm very like aware that it would be short-term pain for long-term gain.
Hmm.
I'm also not interested in undergoing pain at this moment, right? Like I think that that's just a natural like, you know what? Maybe we rethink this. Right?
Okay, perfect. So the original question was, okay, well, what are you feeling in your body? And where your brain went to was like a very clear and accurate description of what would need to happen if I went down this road, which I
Yeah.
don't disagree with. And your brain also skirted the original question, which was, okay, well, how are you actually feeling?
Mm.
So by bringing back to that same question, how are you actually feeling?
I think overwhelmed at the idea of
Okay, overwhelmed. Perfect. Anything, I got to kind of cut you off, but anything else you want to add to that?
no, I think also, I mean, there's a spark of positivity or like excitement around that idea.
So some excitement, some fear, some overwhelm, kind of like a
A
mixed
mixture.
bowl of
Yeah.
emotions. Okay. Totally normal. And I appreciate the transparency. So this is really interesting because so often when I have founders, CEOs that have reached a certain level of success, they've done it just kind of pushing forward because that's their superpower. They're just like, we got to figure this out. We're gonna go. We're gonna keep going, etc. And you get to this one point, and it's just like, okay. So you're like, well, what now? I never actually asked myself, what is it that I truly wanted? Because everything was kind of like getting myself out of that starting range and just making something happen. Something has happened. And while it is a better problem to have, it's still a problem to be like, well, what is it that I really want? Right? Which is kind of like, well, nobody's really asked me that question before. I'm like, yeah, because you're too busy doing all the things you need to do. So you're kind of like right where you need to be, which is also a good thing. Now, what I'm hearing from what you're saying is what I really want is less weight to carry, which is understandable because as the one who grew the business, you carried a lot of weight for a long time. So that absolutely makes sense. And there's some fears on what it would mean to like go there. Some are
Oh,
real and justified with regards to like, yeah, there's like real consequences of things that I got to do to get there. And, there's going to be bumps in the road and there's always a transition time, and that's all true. And I'm also unclear. And again, this sounds like you might be more clear, but it doesn't sound that clear on like what does the 2.0 version actually look like?
yeah. No idea.
So no idea. Okay. So just okay, tell me a little bit more about like what's coming up for you as I reflect that back to you.
No, I think you've got it's 100%. That's a very accurate description of kind of what I've been sitting on and in for a while.
Okay. So, because I know this is like we're literally exploring this territory in like real time. So I'm just gonna kind of be curious. I'm gonna poke and prod, and we'll see where it goes. So, knowing what you know now, where do you kind of want to go from here? Like, what's your gut say?
I think it would be to build out what that position actually entails. What weighs the most? What weight always has to be mine to carry,
Hmm.
right? Like there's certain aspects, the financial aspect, like there's just certain parts of business that you have to, or that I'm choosing that I want to continue to carry, no matter what the weight of it is.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe look at what is the heaviest and how can a position be created to take some of that weight off.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
So all of those answers, again, accurate, clear, well articulated, are about solving the most immediate next problem, which is, okay, who do I hire? Which is obviously an important consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. If you allow yourself to zoom out even further, who are you in the 2.0 version of this reality? Like, who is Leanna if you only have the one to two things to carry?
I think I'm definitely more of a mentor. Um, and the one thing that I just keep thinking of is freedom of time.
Okay.
I think that's very powerful. To me, that's the definition of success, right? There's not a certain number. I got over that a long time ago, right? Thinking that once you hit a certain number, something magical will happen. It doesn't. Um, but looking at what what 2.0 looks like is probably just a lot of time to figure out what that next step is. Where does the company go? How does the structure change? If it changes at all, right? And it may not even be a hiring thing, it may be a promotion within the company that we already have, right? Maybe we can shift that off to several people. Um, But at the end of the day, it would give me space in my head
Hmm.
to strategically plan the next the next big thing that we choose to do.
Okay, perfect. So I know I'm being extra anal with this, like what I'm about to say. So if you
Okay.
want to push back on it, you're welcome to.
Okay.
So the answer to that question is again very clear, beautifully articulated, absolutely makes sense, and is absolutely accurate on what needs to happen on the business end of version 2.0. So it's kind of like your brain has this pattern of skirting around essentially the I variation of this, right?
Yeah.
How do I feel? Skirts around that. What is it that I actually want? Skirts around that. What does 2.0 Leanna look like?
Yeah.
Skirts around that, right? Moves into the comfort zone of strategy, business, operations. Obviously, that's your wheelhouse. Makes sense. So there is this clear deflection around essentially asking and owning what is it that I want.
Hmm.
Because the one thing that I deem to be successful is if I have freedom of time. Well, based off everything you're describing, it doesn't sound like you have that freedom of time that you do want. So now it's like, okay, from an identity perspective, who am I if I have freedom of time? Is there guilt around having freedom of time? Is there excitement around having freedom of time? Who am I as just a mentor and potentially not? And I'm just throwing words out here, but if I'm not the main CEO or whatever the position is you'd be hiring, that part I don't know. But what I'm getting at is like, why do you think your brain skirts around truly asking, owning, and exploring what is it that I actually want?
Yeah. That's very, I appreciate kind of the call out. My thought is twofold. One, the business has been such a main focus for so long that as long as the business has been okay, I've been fine, right? Um, and not in the way that most people use fine when it's not fine, right? Like genuinely fine.
Yeah,
Um, and the second thing is I don't know if I know yet, right? I would like the time to explore. Um, just simply because I have not, I don't think it's necessarily avoiding anything. Um, I do definitely have more freedom of time than I think most people do. Um, that said, would I like more? Absolutely. Right. Right now, when you have a family and you have other responsibilities, that takes a lot of time. I would love some time to just dream. So I don't know if it's necessarily purposeful in avoiding the answer. Just simply, I don't know, and my brain hasn't even really thought about that as a possibility.
awesome. And again, I appreciate the honesty of the answer because that's what I was poking and prodding. Like, is there something else, or is it just literally I've not had the time to ask this
Yeah,
question, which is also totally cool. So thank you for that. So if we just kind of stay in that curiosity space, is there a part of you that resists moving into this space of not just exploration, but of letting go?
of course. I think things are going very well. They're very smooth. Everyone seems to be in the right place at the right time. There's great synergy among the team. So to change that in any way, I mean, there's always, I think, a responsibility to look at it with somewhat caution. It doesn't mean it's going to slow it down or prevent it, but I do think that there's a certain responsibility I have at this point to understand that my decisions affect way more than just me. So, yeah, I think that that's,
Yeah. And totally, like, I totally agree. It's you're not just making a decision for yourself, you're making a decision for the company as a whole and whoever is in the container of the company, not to mention your family, etc. So
yeah,
totally accurate. It makes a lot of sense. So are you okay if we kind of dive deeper into
sure.
this kind of like what I want question? Okay. So just from the vantage point of view, like right now, what would be the vision of yourself that scares you right now?
I don't know if I'm scared really of anything. I trust myself. I trust I am very deeply rooted in faith. So I trust that there's a higher power that leads me and guides me, right? So I don't think fear is something that
Perfect. So
would,
let me just ask it a different way in
okay.
that case. Like, what is the 3.0 version that you have only maybe ever kind of accidentally allowed yourself to dream of potentially look like?
Um, I honestly don't know. All I can think of is more time spent around people that make me feel good and who I make feel good in return.
Okay, fair
Like
enough.
my bucket fillers. The more people I can hang out with that are bucket fillers, that's what I would love to spend my time doing.
Okay, fair enough. So, from my vantage point, I actually think that's probably the sweet spot for right now on where to begin to explore that question. And the only reason I asked it from the fear perspective is oftentimes people will have a fear of like, man, what I really truly deeply want is like X, right?
Oh,
So I asked it from that vantage point. What I was really getting at is like, not what's the 2.0 version, because you're pretty clear on that. Got to get my time back, got to hire this person and make sure that the business doesn't suffer as a result of it. So it's like, well, what's beyond that? That happened successfully. It's great. The business can still grow without you. What does that version of you look like? So even just as a check-in, anything new pop up for you, or it's still kind of like I just got to explore that.
no, I think I would be happy and excited to explore that, but I would definitely need to sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, then I think that's all I got for you today. I think unless there's something that you feel like is outstanding or that you want to explore further, I think you have your trailhead on like where you need to go with this.
Thank you. No, that means a lot because I think as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you and most people can relate. You think you have the answer, and then you realize, oh, that's not the answer. So sometimes having someone kind of reflect back, it's really helpful because you go, oh no, that's not what I meant at all. Here's what I meant. Or you say something that you don't even realize that you're saying until it gets reflected back and you're like, oh, wait, hold on, there needs to be an adjustment. But I think you've given me more to think about in just a few minutes together than I probably have all year, right? Um, I take a few weeks at the end of December every year and look at what's next for the business, what's next for our growth, what's next for our people. One thing I don't look at is what's next for me personally, and I think that I will now add that to the agenda, right? Because that's a really big component of. And I think you said something in the review of my assessment, putting the mask on yourself first, right? Um, I don't think that I've necessarily done that. And in those situations, I don't think people realize how close they are to being out of oxygen, right? And I'm not there, but it's now very, very much on my radar. How do I do provide for my needs first, and then so that can overflow into everything and everyone else, which might have been what I've been ignoring, thinking that it's not a big deal, right? Just kind of circle back. And now I understand even maybe not addressing that has added to the weight. So even just having this conversation, it feels lighter because I have a plan, right? How do I explore this on this level as well as on a personal level?
Yeah. Uh, I'm so glad that that's coming out for you because that's a very common clumping of all of these patterns. So, kind of at the beginning, we talk about the assessment and like, okay, all these people pleasing pieces kind of drove the decision I was making historically. I feel like I'm on the cusp end of that. So now I'm moving into a different space. One of the ripple effects of people pleasing is if your history is one where you grow up and that is like the primary way in which you survive, and what I mean survive here is like this is how I learned to navigate the world. It was effective for me, etc. I could tune into what other people needed. I made sure to give it to them, make sure I was like, that's how I kind of got ahead, right? That's how a lot of these patterns end up starting. Like, yes, that is very good in certain scenarios because it kind of gets you ahead. And it does it at the cost of, well, what is it that I actually want? What are my needs? If I don't have to put everybody and everybody else and I don't have to carry their burdens on top of my own, then like who am I really beyond that? Which is why whenever I'm working with somebody that's in the thick of those people pleasing issues, the first kind of mental model we work through is like people pleasing is fundamentally lying. It is saying yes when internally I mean no. And sometimes when you repeat that long enough, it's like you don't actually even know that like the internal part of me is saying actually no. I don't actually know my truth.
Yes.
And that's the tricky thing about like when you have business owners that then get to a level of success where they now have the financial and the time and the choice space to explore this, you get to this weird precipice where like I don't actually even know, like you said, what it is that I want because I've spent a lifetime ensuring other people get what they want. And it served me well, so like why would I stop it? And then the funny thing is not the funny, the tricky thing is that the people within your precipice right now, like having come out of these patterns, you're in a good spot because you kind of have a clean slate to move towards this, like I said, this 3.0 version of you. And if you move into the 3.0 version of you without addressing the historical patterns that have got you here to begin with, you always run into the risk of sabotaging it,
Yes.
right? And that really is your game to play right now. Yes, part of it is clarity, and then part of it is just having a new normal where like my needs, my oxygen mask is the primary driver to decisions that I make. And it's what I talk about, like having your business fuel your ideal life, right? Like the business should exist to give you the kind of life that money can't buy. And part of that is being unapologetic about the actual life you want to live and then figuring out what's the source of inputs that my business can provide to give me that output that I ultimately want. So that's kind of the tricky space that people in your situation are going to be dealing with as you go into and explore all this. So I know it's kind of future casting to some degree with regards to where you're at, but just what lands for you with that reflection.
I think it's definitely puts like a kind of a potential red flag. So for me to check in with myself, okay, am I still where I need to be? Am I looking at old patterns? Am I starting to repeat? Or is there something that maybe does feel scary that I'm trying to avoid? So it's really easy to kind of regress back. Um,
Yeah. And then just to kind of draw it back, because that's an astute observation, but to draw it back to like something practical, when I had to repeatedly ask you, no, what is it that you're actually feeling? Okay. This is how smart people get into this kind of tricky situation, which is they've excelled and have seen very real world success off of using their head, which is great. That's part of your gifts. You should go all in on that 110%. And the space that you are entering right now is the space of like neck down. What is it that I want is generally not a logical question. It has logic to support what you fundamentally feel. And you can use, in this instance, Logic is a good app. It's a terrible operating system. The actual operating system is, the emotionality, the intuition. You said mention faith. Like all of those will be components that go into like really deeply answering that question. And that is where those old patterns are going to be blind spots because they've been pushed aside in order to give you the success that you have right now, right? It's like, well, it makes sense. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. It does. And winning a game you didn't want to play isn't really winning at all, which is oftentimes, like I said, the whole sabotage thing and why so many people end up successful. And then like, why is it nobody showing up to my funeral type of situations? And I know you're not there. I'm just kind of using a general example of like how
yeah.
this can get distorted long term. So to bring it back, that thing of what you'd experience of like, I actually have to like sit down and think and tune in, like, what am I actually feeling? that's a big indicator of that. Like there's probably a lot of other blind spots that are operating in this space that can interfere with that realization of the 3.0 version of you. So again, what lands with all of that?
Yeah. No, it feels like there's, you don't know what you don't know, right? So just taking the time to maybe treat it like an onion and go layer by layer, right? What does my heart say? What does my intuition say? What does my faith say? And check in with the feelings that come up as I come up with those answers, right? So it seems like there's a lot of work.
Well, big questions sometimes require big things, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else that like you want to explore around this, like while you have me here, or does this feel like we can move to a close?
No, it feels like, yeah, no, it feels really good. I think I'm good with this as a, yeah.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
glad my day is done after this. I think I want to go sit for a minute, right? And just kind of process and digest what everything that we're talking about.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, I thank you for agreeing to do this and showing up in this way. I know it's not always fun to do this publicly, but I think you did it brilliantly. And also, yeah, this is such an important thing for more mature founders that I think oftentimes isn't, public and talked about, etc. So I want to thank you for from that perspective as well. Yeah, and then if you want to move us to a close, let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Yes. So we can be found, I can be found at debellevueconsulting.com. All of our social media handles are at Debellevue Consulting. And just if anyone has not maybe the from the neck down blind spots, from the head up blind spots, I would love to help them kind of navigate that and create the success that they're looking for within the business. So thank
Okay.
you again for having me.
You're very welcome. So yeah, as always, we'll include that in the show notes. And yeah, Leanna, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.